Long before the roads of Greece were crowded with travelers, before the marble temples became ruins, before the names of the great philosophers were spoken beneath the olive trees, there was a small village on the western coast of the Peloponnese. The village was called Asteria. It was not famous. No great king had been born there. No famous hero had raised a sword there. No poet had written songs about its harbor. It was simply a quiet place beside the sea, where fishermen returned at sunset and farmers watched over their olive groves. And every night, when the sun disappeared beyond the water, the villagers closed their doors and listened to the waves. Among them lived a young traveler named Theron. Theron was not a warrior. He had never fought in a famous battle. He carried no legendary weapon. He was simply curious. He loved old places. Whenever he heard stories about forgotten temples, abandoned roads, or mysterious caves, he wanted to see them for himself. His grandfather had once told him that the hills beyond the village contained the remains of a temple older than any building still standing in Asteria. Most people ignored the story. Theron never did. One autumn evening, when the moon was almost full, Theron walked beyond the olive groves. The air was cool. The leaves moved gently in the wind. Far below, the sea reflected the moonlight. He followed an old stone path until he reached a hillside covered in grass. There, hidden beneath vines and moss, he found several ancient columns. The temple was almost completely buried. Only a few stones remained visible. Theron brushed the dirt away. Beneath it was a carving, a circle surrounded by 12 small stars. He had never seen the symbol before. He continued digging. Eventually his fingers touched something cold. Metal. He carefully uncovered a small bronze tablet. It was green with age, but strange symbols were still visible across its surface. Theron held it beneath the moonlight. The symbols seemed to shimmer. Then something extraordinary happened. A warm wind passed through the ruined temple. The olive trees stopped moving. The sea became strangely quiet, and from somewhere beneath the ground came a sound like a distant heartbeat. Theron froze. He listened. Nothing. Then again, boom. A long silence. Boom. The sound came from beneath the temple. Theron looked at the bronze tablet. One line of the ancient writing had become visible. He could not understand every word, but one name was clear. Olympus. And beneath it were 3 more words. What was forgotten returns. Theron should have gone home. Instead, he stayed. He placed the tablet inside his cloak and looked toward the distant mountains. Mount Olympus was far away. But suddenly, the ancient mountain seemed closer than it had ever been. Above him, the moon shone through thin clouds. And somewhere beneath the ruined temple, something ancient was still sleeping. Theron returned to Asteria before sunrise. He did not tell the villagers what he had found. Instead, he went to the oldest person he knew. Her name was Lyra. She lived in a small stone house overlooking the sea. Lyra had spent her entire life collecting old stories. She knew songs that no one else remembered. She knew the names of forgotten kings. She knew which caves were believed to belong to ancient spirits. When Theron showed her the bronze tablet, she became silent. For a long time, she did not speak. Then she touched the symbol of 12 stars. "I have seen this before," she whispered. Theron leaned closer. "Where?" "In a story my grandmother told me when I was a child." "What story?" Lyra looked toward the window. The first light of dawn was appearing over the sea. It was called the story of the Forgotten Kingdom. Theron waited. Lyra continued. "Before Zeus ruled Olympus, before the Titans ruled the world, there were older beings. Not gods as we understand them. Not Titans. Something older. What happened to them? They were forgotten. By whom? Everyone." Lyra took a deep breath. "That is the strange part." She explained that the oldest stories spoke of a kingdom hidden beneath the world. Its ruler had no temple, no statue, no worshippers. And yet, according to the legend, this forgotten ruler possessed a power even the Olympians feared. The power to erase memory. Not simply to make a person forget a name, but to make the entire world forget that something had ever existed. Theron stared at the tablet. Why would the gods fear that? Because even gods depend upon memory. Lyra pointed toward the sea. People remember Zeus because people tell his stories. They remember Athena because temples carry her name. They remember Apollo because songs are sung to him. She looked back at Theron. But imagine a god whom nobody remembers. Theron felt a chill. What happens to such a god? Lyra lowered her voice. Perhaps he sleeps. The room became quiet. Outside, gulls cried over the harbor. Theron looked again at the bronze tablet. How do I find this kingdom? Lyra shook her head. You don't. But Theron knew from the way she looked at him that she was hiding something. After a moment, she sighed. There is a road to Olympus. Where? Beyond the northern mountains. And then, you must find Hermes. Why Hermes? Because Hermes is the only god who travels everywhere. Lyra handed him an old leather pouch. Inside was a small silver coin. On one side was the image of a winged sandal. On the other was a single star. Take this. Theron held it carefully. What does it do? Nothing. He looked confused. Lyra smiled. Not everything needs to do something. Then she became serious. But remember this. She leaned closer. If the forgotten kingdom truly exists, do not wake what sleeps beneath it. Theron left Asteria 3 days later. He traveled north. The road followed the coastline for many miles before turning inland. The landscape slowly changed. Olive groves became forests. The warm sea air became cooler. Mountains rose ahead. At night, Theron slept beneath trees. He used his cloak as a blanket and listened to distant owls. Every evening, he examined the bronze tablet. The symbols seemed different each time. Sometimes they looked like ordinary letters. Sometimes they appeared to move. Once, while staring at them beneath the moon, Theron thought he saw a map. A winding road. A mountain. A dark circle beneath the earth. And 12 stars. Then the image disappeared. On the 5th evening, Theron reached a crossroads. 3 roads stretched before him. One went toward the sea. One went into the forest. The third climbed toward the mountains. A stranger was sitting beside the road. He wore a traveler's cloak. A wide-brimmed hat rested on his head, and beside him lay a staff. Theron stopped. The stranger looked up. You are going the wrong way. Theron glanced at the 3 roads. Which one leads to Olympus? The stranger smiled. None. Theron frowned. Then how do I get there? You don't walk to Olympus. How? You are invited. The stranger stood. His movements were unusually quick. He looked at the bronze tablet beneath Theron's cloak. You found it. Theron stepped backward. Who are you? The stranger laughed. You already know. He removed his hat. Small wings were attached to his sandals. Theron's eyes widened. Hermes. The god smiled. At last. Hermes was not like the statues Theron had imagined. He did not appear enormous or terrifying. He looked young, almost playful. His eyes were bright with curiosity. You have many questions, Hermes said. Yes. Good. Will you answer them? No. Theron stared at him. Hermes laughed. Come. We have a long journey. They walked together. Hermes moved quickly, but whenever Theron struggled to keep up, the god slowed. They passed through forests where sunlight fell in golden beams. They crossed rivers. They climbed rocky paths. At sunset they reached a high valley. From there, Theron saw something impossible. A city floating above the clouds. Golden towers rose from Mount Olympus. Bridges of light connected enormous halls. Clouds drifted beneath the city. Thunder rolled quietly in the distance. Theron stopped. Is that Olympus? Hermes nodded. Beautiful, isn't it? Theron could only stare. Then he noticed something. One section of the mountain was dark. Not shadowed. Dark. As though light itself refused to touch it. What is there? Hermes' smile disappeared. The place you were searching for. Hermes brought Theron into Olympus. The halls were enormous. Columns of white marble rose into the clouds. Golden lamps burned without smoke. The floors reflected the stars. Yet Hermes did not take him to Zeus. Instead, he brought him to a quiet library. Thousands of scrolls filled the walls. Some were written on parchment. Others were carved into stone. Some appeared to be made from strange materials Theron had never seen. A woman stood among the shelves. She wore a simple white robe beneath bronze armor. Her gray eyes were calm. Athena. She looked at Theron. You found the tablet. Theron nodded. Why does everyone know about it? Because we have been waiting for someone to find it. Athena walked toward a large table. She placed her hand upon the bronze tablet. The symbols began glowing. A map appeared. Theron saw Greece. Then the map moved beneath the earth. There were tunnels, rivers, caverns, and beneath Mount Olympus was an enormous hidden city. Athena spoke quietly. Long before Olympus became the home of the gods, there was another kingdom. The Forgotten Kingdom? Yes. Who ruled it? Athena hesitated. Then she said a name Theron had never heard. Mnemosyne. Theron frowned. But Mnemosyne is the Titan goddess of memory. Athena nodded. That is the name history remembers. And the forgotten ruler? Athena looked at the map. Her other name has been erased. Why? Because she discovered something the gods could not control. What? Athena looked directly into Theron's eyes. The beginning of memory. Athena explained that before stories were written, before people gave names to stars, there was memory. Memory allowed the universe to know what it had been. Without memory, every moment would disappear. The gods could control storms. They could command seas. They could speak with the dead. But they could not control memory. Until someone learned how. The Forgotten Kingdom had discovered a way to preserve memories outside the mind. They placed memories into crystals, into rivers, into stones, into stars. And because of this, the kingdom became dangerous. If the gods could control those memories, they could change the history of the world. Zeus feared that power. The Titans feared it. Even Hades feared it. So the kingdom was hidden. Its name was removed from every scroll. Every temple was destroyed. Every story was changed. Eventually, nobody remembered it. Nobody except Athena. Why didn't you tell anyone? Athena looked toward the library windows. Because sometimes remembering something is not the same as waking it. Theron touched the tablet. Why did it come to me? Athena answered softly. Because the kingdom has begun remembering itself. A deep rumble moved through Olympus. The lamps flickered. Hermes looked toward the ceiling. That is not good. Athena's expression became serious. Something has awakened. Theron and Hermes left Olympus before sunrise. Their first destination was the sea. Poseidon waited there. The god of the sea appeared beside an enormous wave. His trident rested against his shoulder. You want to enter the Forgotten Kingdom? Poseidon said. Theron nodded. Then you must first cross the sea beneath the sea. Poseidon touched the water with his trident. The ocean opened. A staircase appeared beneath the waves. Theron stared. Hermes smiled. Try not to hold your breath. They descended. The water closed above them. Yet they could breathe. Below the surface was another world. Coral forests glowed with blue light. Silver fish moved between enormous ruins. Ancient statues stood beneath the water. Then Theron saw a city. Its towers were covered in seaweed. Its streets were empty. But thousands of tiny lights glowed inside the windows. Who lives there? Poseidon answered. No one. Then who lights the lamps? The god did not answer. One by one, the lights began turning toward them, as if the city had opened its eyes. The underwater city was silent. Theron walked through its streets. He saw statues of people whose names had disappeared from history. He saw temples dedicated to unknown gods. He saw mosaics depicting events that had never appeared in any Greek story. One mosaic showed Zeus as a young god. Another showed the Titans. But there was something strange. Behind them stood a woman holding a silver flame. Her face had been scratched away. Who is she? Theron asked. Poseidon answered. The one who was forgotten. Suddenly, a voice came from the empty streets. Not forgotten. Theron turned. Remembered. A woman appeared at the end of the road. She wore a dark blue robe. Her hair floated as though underwater. Her eyes were silver. Hermes stepped forward. Who are you? She smiled. A memory. Then she disappeared. The city became dark. After leaving the underwater city, Theron continued his journey. They reached an island that appeared on no map. The island was covered in golden grass. Birds flew through the sky. A small village stood beside a peaceful lake. But something was wrong. Nobody moved. A fisherman stood beside the water with his net raised. A child stood in the middle of a road. A woman held a basket. Everything was frozen. Tom stopped here, Hermes said. Why? Because someone wanted to preserve a perfect moment. Theron walked through the village. Then he heard singing. A young girl sat beside the lake. She was the only person moving. She looked at him. You came late. Late for what? To remember. She pointed toward the mountain. She is waiting there. Who? The girl smiled. The forgotten queen. Before climbing the mountain, Theron traveled to Delphi. Apollo was waiting. The god sat beside the ancient temple. His lyre rested beside him. The air smelled of olive leaves. Apollo studied Theron for a long moment. You are carrying a dangerous story. I want to know the truth. Truth is rarely comfortable. I still want it. Apollo smiled. Then listen carefully. He played one note on the lyre. The sound echoed through the mountains. Theron saw visions. A kingdom beneath the earth. A woman holding a silver flame. Zeus standing before a sealed gate. Hades turning away. Poseidon lowering his trident. Athena closing a book. Then Theron saw himself standing before the forgotten queen. Apollo stopped playing. What did you see? Me? Yes. Why am I there? Apollo looked toward the sunset. Because every forgotten story eventually chooses someone to remember it. Theron entered a forest at night. The moon was bright. Silver light touched the leaves. Artemis appeared between the trees. She carried a bow. A white deer stood beside her. You are afraid, she said. Yes. Good. Theron was surprised. Why? Fear reminds you to pay attention. Artemis guided him deeper into the forest. They reached a clearing filled with thousands of white flowers. Each flower represented a forgotten person. Kings, queens, children, warriors, farmers, poets, people whose names had vanished. Theron knelt beside one flower. How can I remember them? Artemis answered. You cannot remember everyone. Then what should I do? Remember that they existed. The wind moved through the flowers. For a moment, the entire forest seemed to whisper.
The next morning, Theron reached the forge of Hephaestus. Fire illuminated the enormous chamber. The god was shaping a strange object. It looked like a key. This will open the gate beneath Olympus, Hephaestus said. Why are you helping me? Because I built the lock. Theron stared. You helped hide the kingdom? Long ago. Why? Hephaestus lowered his hammer. Because Zeus believed the forgotten queen would destroy Olympus. Will she? Hephaestus smiled sadly. That depends on what she remembers. He handed Theron the key. It was warm. Inside its metal surface were tiny stars. Do not use it until the right moment. When is the right moment? You will know. Before entering the underworld, Theron passed through a garden belonging to Aphrodite. It was filled with roses. White marble fountains reflected the sky. Birds sang among the trees. Aphrodite sat beside a pool. You are looking for someone, she said. The forgotten queen. Aphrodite nodded. She was once loved. By whom? Everyone. Theron was confused. Then why was she forgotten? Because love can disappear when people become afraid. Aphrodite touched the water. A reflection appeared. Theron saw a beautiful kingdom filled with people. They were celebrating. Music played. Children ran through gardens. The forgotten queen walked among them. She looked happy. Then the image changed. War came. The people fled. The queen stood alone. Aphrodite whispered. She did not lose her kingdom. They abandoned her. Hermes led Theron toward the underworld. The entrance was hidden beneath an ancient mountain. They crossed the boundary between life and death. The world became quiet. The river Styx flowed beneath a dark sky. Charon waited with his boat. He looked at Theron. Living? Yes. Why? I have questions. Charon laughed. Everyone who comes here has questions. They crossed. On the other side, Theron saw endless fields. Shadows moved slowly. Some looked peaceful. Others seemed lost. Then a familiar voice called his name. Theron. He turned. His grandfather stood nearby. Theron's breath stopped. You died years ago. His grandfather smiled. Yes. Why are you here? Because you finally came looking. Theron's eyes filled with tears. His grandfather stepped closer. Do not be afraid. I don't understand. You don't need to. Then he disappeared. Persephone waited in a garden beneath the earth. Flowers grew there that had never been seen by the living. Their petals glowed softly. Persephone welcomed Theron. You saw someone you loved. My grandfather. Yes. Was he real? He was a memory. Is there a difference? Persephone smiled. Not always. She explained that the underworld preserved memories. Every person who died carried memories into the realm of Hades. But memories could fade, unless someone remembered them. Then the forgotten queen must have millions of memories. Persephone nodded. And that is why she is dangerous. Why? Because she remembers everything. Deep beneath the underworld was a prison. There, an ancient titan was chained. Not Cronus, not Atlas. A forgotten titan named Asterion. His eyes opened when Theron approached. You carry the key. Theron stepped back. What is behind the gate? Asterion laughed softly. The truth. What truth? That the gods were never the first. Theron stared. Asterion continued. There were worlds before this one. Who created them? Nobody knows. Then why was the kingdom hidden? Because the queen remembered the worlds that came before. Asterion's chains rattled. She remembers the first sunrise. He looked at Theron. And she remembers the first death. Theron returned to Olympus. The gods were waiting. Zeus stood at the entrance to a vast underground chamber. Athena was beside him. Poseidon held his trident. Hades stood silently behind them. Even Hera was there. Zeus looked at Theron. You have gone too far. Theron held up the key. Then tell me the truth. Silence. Finally, Zeus spoke. The forgotten queen was once our sister. Athena closed her eyes. Hades looked away. Poseidon lowered his head. Zeus continued. Her name was erased because she knew what existed before us. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because we were afraid. The king of the gods looked toward the sealed gate. Fear created the greatest lie Olympus ever told. Theron inserted the key. The gate opened. Beyond it was a vast underground kingdom. Golden towers rose from a dark landscape. Millions of tiny lights floated through the air. The lights were memories. Theron stepped forward. At the center stood the forgotten queen. She was older than the Titans, older than Olympus. Her silver hair moved in a wind that did not exist. She looked at Theron. You came. Who are you? She smiled. My name has been erased. Then what should I call you? She thought for a moment. Call me Nemi. The word meant memory. I remember everything, she said. The beginning. The first gods. The first world. The first promise. And the first betrayal. Theron asked, do you want revenge? Nemi looked toward Olympus. No. Then what do you want? I want to be remembered. Nemi raised her hand. The underground kingdom began changing. The walls disappeared. Theron saw ancient worlds. Forests larger than mountains. Seas beneath strange skies. Cities that had existed before humanity. Civilizations that vanished without leaving ruins. He saw beings who had never been remembered. And suddenly he understood. The Forgotten Kingdom was not a threat. It was a library. A place where lost memories were preserved. The gods had not destroyed it. They had simply hidden it. But hiding memory had created a different danger. The world had forgotten too much. Theron turned toward Zeus. What happens now? Zeus looked tired. We remember. The gods expected a battle. But Nemi did not raise a weapon. She simply opened her hands. The memories flowed outward. Across Olympus. Across Greece. Across the sea. People began remembering old songs. Old names. Old stories. Ancient temples that had been forgotten suddenly became meaningful again. The stars seemed brighter. The gods remembered things they had forgotten. Zeus remembered being a frightened child. Hera remembered her first meeting with him. Poseidon remembered the first ocean. Hades remembered the moment he first entered the underworld. Athena remembered her first thought. Apollo remembered his first song. Artemis remembered her first moon. The gods became quiet. They realized that immortality did not mean remembering everything. Even gods could forget. And sometimes, remembering was the greatest gift. Persephone stood between the living world and the underworld. Nemi offered her a choice. Stay here forever, or return to the world above. Persephone looked toward Hades, then toward the earth. She understood something. She belonged to both. So she chose neither. She chose the path between them. From then on, she would continue moving between worlds. Spring and winter, life and death, memory and forgetting. She became the bridge, and the seasons continued.
Athena approached Theron. You have learned many things. Yes, but you still have one decision. What? You found the kingdom. You know its secret. You can return home and tell everyone. Theron hesitated. What would happen? People would become obsessed. They might search for the kingdom. They might try to steal its memories. They might turn the sacred place into another treasure. So what should I do? Athena smiled. Tell the truth. All of it. No. Theron looked confused. Tell them that forgotten things still matter. He understood. He did not need to reveal the location. He only needed to preserve the lesson.
Theron left Olympus. Hermes accompanied him to the mountains. The journey felt different now. The same forest seemed brighter. The rivers sounded clearer. The stars seemed closer. At the crossroads, Hermes stopped. You are going home. Theron nodded. Will I ever see you again? Hermes smiled. Travelers always meet again. Then the god disappeared. Theron continued alone. Days passed. Eventually, he saw the sea. Asteria was waiting. The village looked exactly as he had left it. Fishermen were returning. Children were playing. Smoke rose from small chimneys. The olive trees moved gently in the wind. Theron smiled. He had traveled farther than he ever imagined. Yet somehow, home felt new. Theron returned to Lyra. He placed the bronze tablet on her table. She looked at him. You found her. Yes. Did she destroy Olympus? No. Did she awaken? Yes. Lyra smiled. And what did you learn? Theron thought about it. Then he said, nothing is truly forgotten if someone chooses to remember. Lyra nodded. She placed the tablet beside an old collection of stories. Then perhaps your journey has not ended. What do you mean? You are now part of the story. Years passed. Theron became a storyteller. He traveled from village to village. He told stories about gods, but he also told stories about ordinary people. A farmer who planted an olive tree, a sailor who returned home, a child who watched the moon, an old woman who remembered a song, a forgotten king, a lost village, a nameless hero. He never told people where the forgotten kingdom was. Instead, he taught them to remember. Eventually, the ruined temple where he had found the tablet was restored. A small inscription was placed there. It did not mention Nemi. It did not mention Olympus. It simply said, remember what deserves to be remembered. Many years later, when Theron was old, Hermes appeared again. Would you like to see Olympus? Theron smiled. One last time. Hermes took him there. The mountain looked exactly as he remembered. But something had changed. There were new flowers, new statues, new songs. The gods had continued living. Zeus was older in appearance. Athena was still wise. Apollo still played music. Artemis still walked beneath the moon. Hades remained quiet. Persephone still crossed between worlds. And somewhere beyond them, Nemi's kingdom continued sleeping beneath the earth. Theron looked toward the horizon. Will the kingdom ever disappear? Athena answered, no. Why? Because now someone remembers. That night, Theron stood upon Mount Olympus. The sky was perfectly clear. Millions of stars stretched above him. He remembered the first night when he had found the temple. He remembered the bronze tablet, the forest, Hermes, Athena, Poseidon, Apollo, Artemis, Hades, Persephone, the forgotten queen. He realized that his entire journey had been about one simple thing. Not finding a kingdom, not meeting gods, not discovering a secret, but learning to look carefully at the world. A stone could hold a memory. A song could preserve a name. A tree could outlive generations. A story could travel thousands of years. And perhaps that was why the ancient myths had survived. Because every time someone told them, they became alive again. The night deepened. The halls of Olympus became quiet. Apollo's lyre rested beside a column. Athena's books were closed. Hermes had gone somewhere beyond the mountains. Artemis walked beneath the moon. Poseidon watched the distant sea. Hades sat quietly beside Persephone. Zeus stood alone beneath the stars. For once, the king of the gods did not look powerful. He looked peaceful. He looked at the sleeping world below. Villages rested. Ships floated quietly in the harbor. Fires burned softly. People dreamed. The world continued without asking the gods for anything. And perhaps that was the greatest peace of all. Far beneath the earth, the forgotten kingdom remained. Its golden towers stood beneath an endless underground sky. Its rivers flowed quietly. Its gardens bloomed. The memories remained safe. Nemi walked through the empty streets. She touched the walls. She listened to ancient songs. She remembered every person who had ever lived there. But she was no longer alone. Sometimes, somewhere in the world above, a storyteller spoke of an ancient kingdom. A child listened. An old man remembered. A poet wrote. A traveler wondered. And each time, one tiny light appeared in the forgotten kingdom. Another memory had returned. Another name had survived. The kingdom slept, but it was no longer forgotten. And now the story comes to its quietest place. Imagine ancient Greece beneath a peaceful night sky. The temples are silent. The mountains are dark. The sea moves gently against the shore. A soft wind travels through the olive trees. Far above, Mount Olympus rises into the clouds. The gods are resting. The ancient battles are finished. The quests are finished. The prophecies are quiet. The heroes have returned home. The ships are resting in their harbors. And beneath the earth, the forgotten kingdom sleeps peacefully. There is nothing left to fear, nothing left to discover, nothing left to prove. Only the stars, only the moon, only the distant sound of water. Theron closes his eyes. The world becomes quiet. He remembers the first temple, the bronze tablet, the silver coin, the road to Olympus, the underwater city, the forest of Artemis, the garden of Aphrodite, the river Styx, the forgotten queen. And finally, he remembers something Athena once told him, that sometimes remembering is not about holding on to the past. It is about allowing the past to rest peacefully. The night grows deeper. The moon moves slowly across the sky. One by one, the stars seem to become softer. The ancient world begins to fade. The mountains become shadows. The temples become silhouettes. The sea becomes a dark blue dream. And the voices of the gods become distant. Very distant. Zeus is sleeping. Hera is sleeping. Athena is sleeping. Apollo is sleeping. Artemis is sleeping. Poseidon is sleeping. Hades is sleeping. Persephone is sleeping. Even Hermes, the traveler who never seemed to stop moving, has finally found a quiet place beneath the stars. The forgotten queen closes her eyes beneath the earth. Her kingdom rests. Its golden lights become softer. The ancient memories settle like snow. Nothing is lost. Nothing needs to be searched for. Everything is quiet. And somewhere on the coast of Greece, waves continue touching the shore. Again, and again, and again. The same rhythm that ancient sailors heard. The same rhythm that fishermen heard. The same rhythm that poets heard. The same rhythm that Theron heard on the first night of his journey. The sea does not hurry. The stars do not hurry. The mountains do not hurry. Tonight, you do not need to hurry either. Let the story drift away. Let the ancient temples disappear into darkness. Let the gods become distant figures beneath the stars. Let the forgotten kingdom close its gates. Let the last golden light fade. And as the night becomes peaceful, imagine the Mediterranean beneath the moon. A calm sea, a quiet shore, an empty road, an olive tree moving gently in the breeze. Above it all, the stars continue shining. The same stars that watched over the birth of the gods. The same stars that watched heroes sail across the sea. The same stars that watched kingdoms rise and disappear. And the same stars that watch over you now. There is nowhere you need to go. Nothing you need to solve. Nothing you need to remember tonight. Simply rest. The ancient world is quiet. The gods are quiet. The sea is quiet. The stars remain. And the story of the forgotten kingdom can finally sleep. Good night. Sleep peacefully. And may the ancient stars of Greece remain above you until morning.